Hello everybody and welcome to the channel Out of Ammo, Out of Time. I'm your host, Krabby Terror 8, and here we are in part 12. I think it's part 12 of the Investigator games with Path to Carcosa Investigators, and this week it's Minh Thi Phan's turn to step up to the plate and play the Investigator games. So before we start, just a little bit of an explanation for those who are new to the channel, and I do apologize for those of you who've watched a number of these videos, but I just need to explain a little bit about what it's about. So the Investigator games is like the Hunger Games in a way. We throw each investigator into a scenario, and in this case it's the Gathering, with their starter deck, and we see how they go. And after they've each gone through the scenario, we tot up their victory points and how many experience points they gain, and they end up in a league table. And you can see the league table at the end of this video. And we've had all kinds of outcomes. Some investigators are currently sitting at the top of the table, and then there are some who surprisingly are languishing right down the bottom. And I won't give away who's where, but you can see all of that, as I said, at the end of the video. So a spoiler warning as well. If you haven't played Arkham Horror the card game before, if you haven't played the Gathering before, I would probably recommend that you go ahead and do that first in real life. I'm assuming that the people watching this have played the Gathering at least once, and I recognize that a lot of people might be coming to this video to check out how different investigators work out and seeing some of the mechanics, which is fine, but I would really encourage anyone who hasn't played at all to give it a go, or maybe watch an introduction on how to play first, because I assume that people know that before we start. Okay, so that's that. So bit of an introduction there. As I always do, I speak to the investigators in the green room before they start, and Min was no exception here. So I had a chat to her in the green room. She was very quiet. She just sat there speaking very quietly with a very large book, The King in Yellow, clutched to her chest. She's very nervous about doing this. You know, some of the investigators I talk to are pretty confident. That's not always borne out by the outcome, but they're pretty confident. But I'd say that Min is probably not one of those. She's very nervous and unsure, mainly because she's most comfortable when she's supporting others. So she's not so comfortable when she's thrown into scenarios where she's by herself and playing solo. She's not especially set up well to be a solo investigator. She's more set up really to be a support investigator. So she's very nervous about how she's going to do in the investigator games. And I think, judging from what she's saying, I think her expectations are fairly low. So if she manages to get through the scenario and resign and manage to survive, I think she'll see that as a victory of sorts. So she's certainly not trying to finish the scenario in 8 turns, like that's the gold standard, or anything like that. I think she just wants to survive the scenario intact. And one thing that she was saying to me was that she's had a chat to Daisy and Rex as well, and I think the Seekers are a little bit annoyed, I have to say. They're a bit annoyed generally that they're not really set up so well for solo play. It's quite difficult for them to compete in the investigator games. So there's some talk that the 3 of them are going to petition Fantasy Flight Games for some kind of change or amendment so that they can compete in the investigator games more effectively. Well, I'll sign any petition that they want. I think Mina was talking about something about getting Fantasy Flight Games to allow them to have a lightning gun as a neutral weapon that they can access in their starter decks or something, which would be nice, but I doubt that's going to happen, but you never know. So apart from that, the only other thing, Min showed me the book The Yellow King. I had a flip through. I didn't like really handling it at all. It feels strange in the hands. I've had a few nightmares since. Some city keeps popping up in my dreams and things, and so I'm not really very happy about the fact that I had a look at it. The other thing Min's been doing is she's been watching True Detective on Netflix. So I'm not sure why she was talking about True Detective on Netflix, but anyway, she said that she's been particularly interested in watching it. So that seemed a little bit left of field. I'm not sure why that's the case, but anyway. So yes, so that was a chat with Min. I also had a chat to Lita and to the Ghoul Priest. Lita is of the view that Min really has no option but to come and fetch her, because if she doesn't, she's going to really struggle, and I kind of think that's probably the case. So Lita has made it known that Min should do everything she can to get her on board, as long as she can convince her when the time comes. The Ghoul Priest, he's been battered about a bit, but he's had some successes as well, and I would say overconfident is probably the term for the Ghoul Priest in this particular case. I think he feels he's on a winner here, and that he can dispatch Min relatively easily. So yes, having a look at Min's deck. Now there's been a couple of people who mentioned the last week's deck that Mark Harrigan had, which was a sort of a Guardian Rogue deck, and seemed quite strange that there would be all these rogue cards in Mark Harrigan's deck. Seemed very incongruous, and I'm inclined to agree. These are just the official starter decks that Fantasy Flight Games recommends, and I'm only doing these because it seems like the only fair way to make sure everybody starts with their starter decks, but some are more optimized than others. I think Min's deck is okay. It's got some standard Seeker cards that you would hope would be in there, like, of course, Dr. Milan Christopher and the old Book of Law and things like Deduction. So immediately, even without a flashlight in there, which we've got the flashlight as well, Min is going to have no trouble getting the clues. The issue for her is not going to be getting the clues in this particular scenario. The difficulty for her will be in how many enemies and monsters she ends up encountering. If she just happens to have one of those scenarios where the counter deck just draws lots and lots of enemies and monsters, it's going to be very, very difficult for her. If she has a smoother run of it and not so many monsters and enemies pop up, then she'll be okay. But when we get to the Ghoul Priest, a number of things need to happen, because she has a fight of 2 and an evasion of 2. So she is very weak in the 2 core skills that you need to really kind of manage enemies, which is really, really hard. So there's a couple of things that she's going to need to be able to do. I think if we're going to take on the Ghoul Priest, first of all, yes, she needs to use her intellect to get Leader Chandler on board, not only because then she gets +1 attack and +1 damage, but also because she's just another person to soak up damage. The other thing is that she's going to need some cards on the table to be able to do this, or some cards in the hand. And if we can't get them, it's going to make it quite hard. So I think the first thing is she's going to need some way to evade the Ghoul Priest, either with something like Survival Instinct, or using something like Dig Deep, or Hyper Awareness, and use resources to evade the Ghoul Priest to get Leader Chandler. The other thing that I think is she's going to need something like the baseball bat. I'd say if we don't have the baseball bat, even with Leader Chandler, it's going to be quite difficult. And Mind Over Matter is the other card that we definitely are going to need, because either we're going to need it for evasion, or more likely we're really going to need it if we're going to take down the Ghoul Priest. If these things don't happen, then we're probably going to be in a situation where we're going to end up resigning, which is perfectly fine. I think that's a respectable outcome for a Seeker. rather than trying to fight the ghoul priest and ending up with a mental or a physical trauma. Yes, so it's going to be a lot of moving parts. It's going to be quite a difficult scenario to manage because we're going to need a whole lot of particular cards. And the one thing is our weakness cards are this one's okay. We got Haunted, which is fine. It just takes a couple of goes to get rid of. I'm glad we didn't get Amnesia. That would have been really awful because the other card we have as a weakness card is a real challenge. It's one of the worst weakness cards, I think, in the game. The King in Yellow. A couple of things. King in Yellow, it takes up a hand slot for a start, so you're immediately down to one hand slot. You can so if you've got both your hand slots taken up, like with the baseball bat, bye baseball bat. So this is the problem, is trying to manage all this and knowing in some ways it's better to get the King in Yellow early in the game, so then you know you've dealt with it and you can move on, because the danger is if you draw it at exactly the wrong time, ready to kill the ghoul priest, got the baseball bat, out comes the King in Yellow, that means the baseball bat's gone. So really, really difficult, and there's no fire axe in this deck. So yes, and then the other thing is you have to commit at least 3 cards to get rid of the King in Yellow with 6 matching skill icons. Luckily that can include wild card icons, and Min has a skill which allows you to add a wild card icon. So, but even so, you have to commit 3 cards. So the other thing in the back of your mind whenever you're playing Min is you have to kind of keep all these cards in your hand, because if the King in Yellow pops up, you need to be able to deal with it. Yeah, it really is a problematic card to have pop up, and so you really have to keep mindful that it could be there at any time. And indeed, Analytical Mind, which is a great card, and you can commit it if you have it on the table. It means that if you commit 1 card to a skill test, you can draw a card. That sounds great, but the problem is that you kind of keep it back because it's 2, and if you add the third Min's special ability, you've got 3 wild cards, which means you can much more easily deal with the King in Yellow. So when I've played Min, I don't tend to play this on the deck, on the table, because I want to keep it in case the King in Yellow card turns up. So the problem with Min is you're constantly, unless you've dealt with the King in Yellow, you'll constantly have that in the back of your mind, and you constantly need to keep your hand size up. So that makes it really difficult. So it's going to be a real challenge playing this deck. I can see why I completely see why Min is nervous playing in a solo game, and we will see how we go. It's going to be an interesting scenario, and I think, like I said, the expectation is if we can survive through it and resign, that will be a good outcome. If we manage to defeat the ghoul priest, that will be an amazing outcome, but it's not going to be very easy to achieve that for Min. So there we go. Let's shuffle up the deck. So we'll close and shuffle up the deck, and we are here in turn 1 of the investigation phase. We're here in the study. I'll just read the introduction cards, and then we can get going. So what's going on? It's late at night and you're holed up in your study researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. It feels completely congruent with who Min is. A few hours into your research, you hear the sound of strange chanting from coming from your parlour down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning as if something were digging beneath the floor. And the act is trapped. As you leap to investigate, well, Min's got a vitality of 2. So I don't think she's a leaper. I think as she gets up slowly to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. You're trapped inside your study until you can find another way out. So here we are, trapped in the study. We've got our 3 actions. We've got our 5 resources. We're ready to roll. So I think the first thing is, let's do the bit that's my most favorite part, which is drawing our opening hand. And there's a couple of things I would love to see in the opening hand. I would very much like to see Milan Christopher, because if we can get him early, it means that we can build up resources that then we can use in the later part of the game with hyper awareness or dig deep. So that's probably one of the cards that I want. Other cards are cards that we will need down the track. So getting things like, you know, a weapon at least at this stage is going to be helpful if we need to deal with rats or something like that. Getting dig deep or hyper awareness onto the table early would also probably be a good idea, because we are going to need all the help we can muster. Yeah, I didn't mention also the Elder Sign effect that Min has. You get +1, and if you choose a skill card committed to this skill test, return it to its owner's hand, which sounds on paper great, but there's only a few skill cards in the deck, so it's not going to happen very often. So, you know, I think there's only, I think in the starter deck there's like 4 of them. So you would have to be playing one of those skill cards, and you would need to get the Elder Sign. So it may happen once, maybe not. So yes. And the other thing about our special ability is that's only limit once for each investigator. So well, there's only us, so that's only once per round that we can do that. And a round, of course, being the whole box of dice. Yeah, of the phases. Okay, so let's draw our 5 cards, and we get working on a hunch. So that just allows us to discover a clue at location, and it's also got 2 intellect. So we may need to use it, but we can also keep it for Lita Shambler, so we can parley her. Second one is Leather Coat. Well, Leather Coat's nice because it's an easy soak for extra damage. So you know, when we're heading down to the cellar and things like that, so that's a nice card, and it doesn't cost anything, so that's a nice card to get. We also get No Stone Unturned. This is good because we can look at the top 6 cards and draw it and shuffle his or her deck. This can be handy with the King in Yellow, because if the King in Yellow hasn't come up for a while and we're thinking, oh, it could come up anytime, we can play this, we can draw 6 cards, and if it's King in Yellow's in there, it means it gets shuffled away again. So that can be a way of kind of trying to manage the King in Yellow. Fourth card is Old Book of Law, which again is actually another way we can sort of manage the King in Yellow, because we can keep searching the top 3 and try to avoid getting the King in Yellow. So that's 4. And then the 5th card is the Magnifying Glass. Lots of hand slots, so no weapons. So this gives us +1 while investigating, which is also very handy. So what are we going to do here? Because we've got no Milan Christopher, and rather, to be honest, I would rather have a Milan Christopher than a Magnifying Glass, even though I like the Magnifying Glass. This is good because this is a wildcard icon. So back to the point about getting the King in Yellow, wildcard icons are absolutely critical if we're going to deal with the King in Yellow really, really fast. So I want to keep that. I want to keep Leather Coat because it's an easy addition. Working on a hunch is good. So I think these 2 cards, whilst they're nice, I mean, this card is great in a Daisy deck, Old Book of Law, but without that extra action, it's okay to be drawing the cards, but you want to be doing other things. So I'm going to take out these 2. I'm going to keep these 3. I'm going to draw 2 more. Do I throw out more? Because I could throw out everything but the Yellow Coat and hope to get Milan Christopher, because Milan Christopher would make a big difference in terms of resources, because none of these feel essential at the moment. So I'm going to throw all these in except the Leather Coat. So that's 4 cards, and we get Hiding Spot, which is good for avoiding enemies. We get Malign Christopher. Great. That's really, really good. Okay, 3, 4 flashlight. Okay, and 5 medical texts. Yeah, so that can be good as a fight, or heal some damage. One of those things. Okay, so I'm glad we did that, because we'll put these back into the deck, and we'll shuffle the deck. There we go. So I'm reasonably happy. We've got no weapons still, so we didn't draw any weapons either time. So not that we're a fighter, but even rats. It's good to have something so you can bash a rat. But that's okay. We got Malign Christopher, and that's really, really good. So I'm really pleased about that. We've got Hiding Spot, so if we need to evade, some kind of non-elite enemy, then we can, because it's a fast action. You can attach it to a location. Enemies gain aloof, so you've got time to deal with and get away, kind of thing. Okay, so let's get going. Here we go. So we've got our 3 actions here. Min waves to the crowd, her book clutched closely to her chest. Crowd goes wild. Min looks very nervous. And the first thing she's going to do, so the first action going to do, is bring out the leather coat. Nice and warm and safe. So there we go. It just helps her out a little bit. So that's the first thing she's going to do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pay for, and we're going to bring out Malign Christopher. Malign waves to the crowd. Crowd goes, ah! So we've got Malign Christopher out, and we've got the leather coat on. So we're cozy and warm, and we've got an ally. So we now have an intellect of 5. So we're rocking an intellect of 5, which means if we can keep Malign on board till we get to Lita, that's going to make our ability even easier in terms of convincing her to come on board. Okay, so that's 2 of our turns. And then for the 3rd turn, let's investigate the study. So we've got a shroud of 2. We are now an intellect of 5. So it's a -3 or better. Let's see how we go. Chaos Bag says tablet. And the tablet is -2. If there's a ghoul enemy at your location, take a damage. There isn't. So we succeed, and we get a clue, and indeed we gain a resource. Very nice. Okay, so there we go. So now that we have Malign Christopher, it would be great to get either hyper awareness or dig deep, or both, onto the table, because we are going to be generating a fair amount of resources between now and when the Ghoul Priest turns up. So hopefully that will be the case. So there we go. So the first round was a very nice round. We got the leather coat out, we got Malign Christopher out, and we easily investigated, and we got a clue, and we gained a resource. I'm just going to take a sip of water after that very exciting round. Okie dokie. So let's move into the enemy phase, or the enema phase, as I like to call it. There are no enemies to speak of, thank goodness. So we'll move right into the upkeep phase, and we get no stone unturned, which is a very nice card. Partly because of what it does, but actually because it has a wild card icon, which means if we do use Min's special ability, it's a double wild card. We didn't use that yet, but we didn't need to use it. We could have used it, and we could have failed in the study, I suppose. So we could have added that in. Oh no, you have to. If you commit a skill card. So yeah, no, you can't just throw in a sort of a fake skill card. Skill test, we don't have any of those cards at the moment, so it's not possible for us to get them back either. So that's a nice card to draw, and will come in handy down the track, no doubt. So there we go. We're into the first Mythos phase in turn 2. first doom on the agenda deck, and it is now time for everybody's favorite part of the Mythos phase, which is the encounter deck. And let's see what the encounter deck throws up for us. Oh, when we get the Icy Ghoul. This is interesting for two reasons. We haven't had the Flesh Eater and the Icy Ghoul turn up for forever. So the fact it's turned up is I was beginning to wonder whether on Octagon this card actually existed. It indeed does exist. Now, in the original gathering, in the original Night of the Zealot, if you draw this card when you're in the study, technically the other rooms don't exist yet. I've only got them on the table just so I don't have to go through that once I'm out of the study. I know things are different in the Return of the Night of the Zealot, that you would then spawn the Icy Ghoul with the location, but in this case we're playing the original The Gathering, so that doesn't happen. So the Icy Ghoul literally can't spawn anywhere, ceases to exist, and so has gone. Now, if I was playing Mike Harrigan, I would have been pretty annoyed. Something like that, Mike Harrigan or Zoe or Guardian or whatever, because I would have really wanted to get the victory points. But when it comes to Min, I'm quietly relieved because we're really not a fighter. So there we go. That's the first encounter card. So let's move into the from the Mythos phase into the second investigation phase. Let's put 3 actions back on Min. And here we are in the study. There is 1 clue left. We've got 3 resources. Now at the moment our hand slots are fine, so the question is, we will want to use the flashlight in the cellar, and that's probably all we'll need. Medical texts is about healing damage, but it also has a fight icon which we may need down the track. So yeah, I don't know what to do. I'm sort of in a bit of a quandary about whether to play the medical text. Healer damage, I mean, it's damage you can heal, but we've got a bit of damage soak here, so I'm not inclined to use it for that at the moment, because quite frankly we might need the fight. So and I don't want to leave the study this turn, because if we spawn another monster we can do an insta-kill of the monster when we move out of the study, so it's always a good idea to stay in the study a little bit longer than you need to. If we are going to get the King in Yellow, I'd rather get the King in Yellow sooner rather than later. I don't want to use no stuff. See, this is where you start to sort of second guess, because we may need some of these cards to deal with the King in Yellow should it arise. I really wish the King in Yellow would actually turn up earlier, but anyway. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll just investigate again the study. So it's a Shroud of 2. And we are a 5, so it's a -3 or better. Chaos Bag says 0, so yeah, we easily succeed and get another resource. So lots of resources. So we've got two goes left. I'm going to keep our hand as full as possible because that Min really does need that. So I'm going to take a second turn to draw a card, and we get deduction. Discover an additional clue, and we will draw another card, and we get Unexpected Courage, which is fantastic because now, as you can see here, we've got the potential. We could, if we got the King in Yellow, we could literally throw in. We could say all these wild cards are vitality cards, and we would have 2, 4, 6. We would be able to get rid of the King in Yellow straight away. So we're in a good position to deal with the King in Yellow. Knowing my luck, the King in Yellow won't turn up. But it also means if we get Min's signature card, that we may be able to put that on the table as well, which is a nice card. Okay, so that's the end of our second phase. We got the clues in the study. We drew a couple of cards, which is particularly Unexpected Courage is a great card to get. We've got lots of resources. So we'll move into the enema phase. No enemies still. So we'll move directly into the investigation, into the upkeep phase, and we get lucky. Lucky is good. I want to keep lucky because you know, it's sort of like a sort of a cancel card with the Ghoul Priest, that if we try and hit the Ghoul Priest and we miss, then lucky could actually make the difference between retaliation and not. So we're definitely going to keep that for when we absolutely need it. Yeah. Okay. The other thing about Unexpected Courage is it's a skill card. So if we play it out and then we do draw the Elder Sign, we get it back. But like I said, chances are a bit limited on that. So there we go. There's the end of the upkeep phase. Moving into the second Mythos phase, we've now got 2 Doom on the agenda. So it could flip this time if we get Ancient Evils, but we'll see how we go with the encounter deck. So the encounter deck gives us Frozen in Fear. Yeah, well, you know, this seems appropriate for Min, poor old Min. Revelation, put Frozen in Fear into your threat area. The first time you perform one of the following actions: move, fight, or evade. Each round it costs an additional action. And then you can test 3. If you do succeed, discard Frozen in Fear. Okay. It shouldn't be too difficult for us to do. Okay, so that's so feeling a bit fearful. We move into the investigation phase, so we'll put 3 actions on Min. And here we are. So it's now time to leave the warm, cozy, safe confines of the study and proceed out into the big, wide, nasty world of the rest of the house. So yeah, that's the first thing we're going to do. So before we take any other actions, we'll spend our 2 clues. And we'll flip this. So here we go. You notice that the edges of your newly purchased rug are tattered and mud-stained. Finding this odd, you shift the furniture aside and pull back the rug. To your surprise, you see a door leading out of your study. You slowly turn the knob and the door swings open, revealing your hallway below. You jump through the doorway, landing on your feet on the soft dirt. The door to the study slams shut above you. The smell of burning wood fills the narrow hall, intermingled with the scent of rot and decay. So put into play the set-aside hallway, cellar, and attic and parlour. Discard each enemy in the study, put each investigator in the hallway, and remove the study from the game. Okay, let's do all of that. So we go whee into the hallway, flip the hallway, boing. Study goes, bye-bye study. Nice knowing you. And yeah, we're here in the hallway. So let's see, let's just read this bit. A glowing barrier blocks the path to your parlour. As you move towards it, intense heat forces you to back away. Picking up a handful of dirt, you toss it at the barrier and watch in horror as dirt incinerates. Perhaps there's something in the cellar or the attic that can help. So when the round ends, investigators in the hallway as a group can spend the requisite number of clues to advance, which of course triggers the Ghoul Priest. So we need to be in a good position to do that. And quite frankly, right now we are not. We're in a reasonable position to get Leader Chandler on board, but without a weapon or mind over matter, or both, it's going to be pretty difficult to deal with the Ghoul Priest. Okay, so now that we're here in the hallway, we'll take 2 turns because we're frozen in fear to go up to the attic. La-di-da-di-da. We always go up to the attic first, so we can flip the attic. 2 clues. And yes, it's a gourmand's delight, and indeed a painter and decorator and seamstress's delight, it would appear from this picture in the attic. That we are going to take a horror for going up to the attic. So, Milan Christopher can cop the horror. There go. So he hops the horror. Hops the Corra. He hops the Corra. And we have one turn left. So whilst we're up here, we might as well investigate, which is being clearly knows heretic like the back of the hand, because she should have no problem investigating a shroud of 1 when she is 5. So it's basically just auto fail is the only thing that's going to make a difference here. Now, I could use deduction and get the clues in one go. But actually that's not in my interests, because if you successfully investigate, you gain a resource. So if I use deduction, I'll get a resource, whereas if I take 2 turns to find them, I'd get 2 resources. So I'm actually better off doing that. And whilst I'm trying to do this as fast as possible, like I said, our expectations with Min are fairly limited, so I'm not trying to finish this by turn 8. Just surviving is what we're aiming for here. So let's just investigate. So 1 versus 5, -4 or better. Chaos Bag says skull, so easy. No enemies there at the location, no ghoul enemies. So we get the clue and we get another resource. So we're building up resources really quite nicely. That's the end of our turn. We can now test this 3, frozen in fear. We are a 4. It's whether we throw in anything. 3 versus a 4. So we've got to get a -1 or better. Well, I'm not using unexpected courage. I don't want to use my wildcard icons because I really need them, and I don't have any others. So I'm just going to go with 3 versus 4, which is a -1 or better. Chaos Bag says, well, good job we didn't put anything in for that. We get the auto fail, so we will remain frozen in fear for a while longer, which is fine. Not in any huge hurry at the moment. Okie dokie, so that's the end of our phase. We got up to the attic, albeit a little bit slowly. We succeeded in getting a clue, but we remained frozen in fear. Malone Christopher took the horror. So let's move into the anima phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so thankfully, mercifully, we haven't had any enemies because we still do not have any weapons. We are still devoid of weapons. So even a ghoul minion is going to be a bit of a problem if one turns up. So that's the end of the enemy phase. And then we'll move into the upkeep phase and we get Rabbit's Foot. Well, that's a nice card to get for those failure skill tests, but then again, it's got a wild card on it. So the question is, do we play it or do we keep it? We've got quite a lot of wild cards now. It might be nice though to have that card drawing ability. Yes, so, and I'm wondering whether we perhaps use No Stone Unturned instead and try and find ourselves a weapon next go so that we're a bit better prepared. So that's the end of the upkeep phase. We got so many resources, so the other thing we could get is Dig Deep or something like that to help us out as well, because we're gaining resources at a fair clip. Okay, so we move into the Mythos phase. So here we go, 3 Doom, flip this. Your house continues to change before your very eyes. The walls have decayed and the ground in many rooms has turned to dirt. It's almost as if you have been transported somewhere else entirely, although every now and again you recognize elements of your former home. Ah, there's that tapestry of the King in Yellow. Ah, there's the little book display case that I use for the King in Yellow. Ah, yes, things like that. Your lead investigator, either each investigator discards a card at random or takes a horror. Or takes 2 horror, I should say. Yes, well, Malone Christopher can't take any more horror. We've got 7. Or do we discard a card at random? I'm really loath to get rid of any cards. And, you know, if we lose unexpected courage, then... So I think I'm just going to take the 2 horror instead. Yep. Which brings us down to 5 horror. So hopefully that's not too bad, but I really don't want to lose any cards at the moment. So, Rise of the Ghouls. The floor beneath you is giving way and you see a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures move swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. You probably don't want to be here when they do. Indeed. Okay. Let's so that's that. So we're now in the Rise of the Ghouls. We've just got to do an encounter card and then we can move forward. So the encounter deck says Crypt Chill. Yes, I'd forgotten about Crypt Chill, hadn't I? See, easy to do. I'd forgotten all about Crypt Chill because, of course, if we'd had out the flashlight or indeed the medical text or something like that, we could have not worried about it. But in this case, it means we've either got to get rid of Milan Christopher or the leather coat if we fail Crypt Chill. So we've got a 4. It would be a 4 versus a 4. What to do? So either we make it a... we could use Lucky, but really for a leather coat? Look, the leather coat's nice, but I can probably afford to lose the leather coat if I really have to. Because I don't, again, I've really got to keep these cards. I can't be throwing out Lucky if I'm going to need it later. I can't afford, I mean, Unexpected Courage, I could throw it out and give myself +3. And I may draw an Elder Sign and get it back, but again, I really can't afford to do that. So I'm just going to have to go 4 versus 4, see how we go. Chaos Bag says +1. From a tentacle to a +1. So there we go. Amazing. Didn't need to anyway. Wow. That was a bit of a save. But it does remind me that I think perhaps we should bring out another asset. We've got plenty of resources to do it. Maybe the rabbit's foot, so that, you know, if we need to lose something, we maybe the flashlight, because we use the flashlight anyway. Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. So there we go. So we're into the investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Min. There we go, Min. 3 actions for you. And we are here, still frozen in fear, up in the attic. Now, unlike when I'm so we know the Icy Ghoul's not going to appear at any time soon. So we actually don't want to stay in the attic, and the reason is the Flesh Eater. We just don't want that spawning in, or if it spawns in the attic and we're not there, it doesn't matter. We don't have to go back to the attic. We're not going to try and finish off the Flesh Eater. So I think we get this clue, which and then we just move down to the hallway and call it a day for this round. I think that's the thing to do. So first thing is, though, do we play or yes, if we actually play something and then we investigate, then we won't be able to, because the first move, fight or evade, costs an additional action. So if we take 2 actions, we're stuck in the attic again for another round, which I'm a little bit loath to stay here because I don't want to be facing down an Icy Ghoul if I can help it. Being very conservative here, poor old Min. She's very nervous, nervously darting through the house. So I think what we do first is we investigate. So it's a 1 versus a 4. Chaos Bag says -1, so that's fine. We get that. We get the second clue, which means we can put a we get a victory point for the attic. Cry goes wild. We get an extra resource for that. We've got 8 resources. We've got so much cash. And then we move into the hallway. So we scuttle out of the attic right back down to the hallway, which takes us 2 turns because of frozen in fear. And that's the end of our go. So again, it's a 4 versus a 3, isn't it? 4 versus a 3 for Frozen in Fear, -1 or better. Chaos Bag says -4, no chance. Good job we didn't try and throw anything in to go with that. Yes, I know if we'd had the rabbit's foot, but then we would have been still in the attic, and I'm trying to avoid that. So we will remain Frozen in Fear for a little bit longer. So that's the end of our turn. We got the next clue. We got back down to the hallway, and we will now prepare to move into the cellar. Okay, let's keep going. So we move into the enema phase, and there are no enemies to speak of. And we move into the upkeep phase, and we get Analytical Mind. That's very nice, but now we're in a case of we've got to discard something. Probably this card, Deduction. Like I said, I'm trying to maximize my resources. If there's one card of anything in the deck, because we can bring out the flashlight, which we will do, then probably Deduction is the one that I would probably get rid of. So we get rid of Deduction. And we have Analytical Mind, which is a really great card because it allows us to draw a card, even though that may bring it on the King in Yellow, so be it. And we've already got Unexpected Courage, we've already got Rabbit's Foot, so I'm feeling like we can deal with the King in Yellow. It would be nice to have that extra card drawing because we still don't have a weapon at this stage. So yes. Or we could keep it because it would give us a +3. So when we're fighting the Ghoul Priest, it would give us essentially a +3 attack. And I've just realised with Min and Frozen in Fear, I should. Oh yes, I could be using the wildcard icon, but I haven't been committing any cards. So yes, so maybe I should be keeping this because we probably need a good +3 or even a couple of +3s to if we are going to defeat the Ghoul Priest. Anyway, we're going to have to play something because I don't want to keep discarding cards, and I feel like all the other cards we've got are fairly important. So we're going to probably bring out the flashlight next go and then go down to the cellar. That's probably what we're going to do. So we move into the Mythos phase, the first Doom on the Mythos phase, so that's all fine. We've got plenty of time. And have a look at the encounter deck, and the encounter deck gives us Dissonant Voices, Still Lives. There we go. So we are Frozen in Fear and Dissonant Voices. Poor old Min's being really being attacked not by monsters, but by I don't think I've ever had this happen to me before. I've got Frozen in Fear and Dissonant Voices out on the table at the same time, which means we can't play any assets or events. So that's that. We can play the skill card, but we can't, not much we can play. So that kind of limits what we can do until that goes away. Well, that's all right. We can just focus on getting down to the cellar, which is a problem because it means we can't play cards in order to we're going to have to discard something. Something's going to have to go, and I didn't really want to have to throw anything out. It looks like Medical Text is going to have to go. Anyway, so that's the end of the Mythos phase, and we move into the Investigation phase. We put 3 actions onto Min. Very frustrating, we can't do anything. I don't think we can play any assets or events. So, what do we do? Well, the one thing we can do is move into the cellar. We know the Icy Ghoul's not going to appear, and that takes 2 actions because we are Frozen in Fear. Dunk, dunk, dunk. On flip. 2 clues in the there. As we're going down into the cellar, we bang our head on the ceiling as we go down. Ouch! We take a damage. Well, the leather coat takes the damage. Go. The coat takes the damage, and we are down here in the cellar. So we've still got an action to do. Because we can't do anything else, I'll just draw a card. Oh, we get another. No stone unturned. Well, there you go. So here we are at the end of the turn. We've got Dissonant Voices in play, which stays here to the end of the round. Okay, but we have Frozen in Fear here, which we need to test at the end of the turn. It's a 3 versus a 4. Chaos Bag says -2. So we don't succeed in getting rid of Frozen in Fear. If there's a ghoul enemy at your location take damage, well, we don't take a damage, but we remain frozen in fear with a -2. We're getting lots of tablets this time. There we go. Okie dokie. So from there, we that's the end of our turn. So in that turn, we didn't do very much really. We because we couldn't because of dissonant voices, but we essentially moved down to the cellar and drew a card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 cards, so we've got lots of cards. So we're going to have to do some discarding. Very frustrating. Poor old Min. All right, so we're here in the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so we move into the upkeep phase. We have to select 2 cards this time. Well, medical text is going to have to go. And what did we get? Oh, we got field work, which gives us if there's a clue at the location. Well, yeah, but it's also got that. So what else would we discard other than that? We don't want to discard the flashlight. I think probably field work. Yes. So we discard those 2 back down to 8. And that's the end of the upkeep phase. We've got so many resources, we don't know what to do with them. So that's the end of the round. So the dissonant voice is now discarded. We're still frozen in fear, but at least we've gotten rid of the dissonant voices. And I've put it in the wrong discard pile. There we go. Okay, let's move into the Mythos phase. So we're now up to 2 Doom on the Mythos phase. And we see what the encounter deck has to say, and the encounter deck has, oh my goodness, Obscuring Fog. It gets +2 Shroud. Oh, let's just center back. Yeah, so we'll just put it there. So this now has a Shroud of 6. Oh my goodness. Oh dear. So that's all right. We're probably okay, but I got rid of the deduction now, which is very annoying. But anyway, that's the way it is. So there we go. So we move into the investigation phase, and we put 3 actions on Min. Now things are a little bit more difficult now because this has now got a Shroud of 6. So I think the first thing we do is we spend 2, and we bring out the flashlight. We're going to need it. 3 supplies. The second thing I think we're going to, so that's the first action. Second action we're going to do is bring out the rabbit's foot. So we've got a hand slot, we've got our necklace slot, we're using up all of our slots because I have a feeling we might yes. So yes, so that's used up a couple of cards, so we're back down to a more manageable set. So here we are. So it's a 6 Shroud. We can bring it down to a 4 Shroud. However, we are a 5 intellect, so it's a -1 or better. And we do have wildcards to pitch in, but again, I don't want to really use them up too much. So the question is, sorry, that was our second turn, wasn't it? Brought out the flashlight and we brought out the rabbit's foot. So do we use no stone on turn and look at the top 6 cards and draw it? Because we could use a weapon or something, or do we just try and try and investigate, and if we fail we can draw a card anyway. I think that's probably the thing to do. The failing now is not so terrible. What would be terrible though is if we use up the flashlight. So I'll give it 1 go this time, but I think if we're still going for 2 clues next go, we're going to have to start pitching in more cards if we're going to get these 2 clues on this location, which is +2 Shroud. Oh, these are successfully investigated. Discard the fog. Well, let's see how we go. Okay, so we're going to use one of our resources on our flashlight to bring this down to 4 versus 4, 5. 4 versus 5, so a -1 or better. Chaos Bag says -2, so we fail. We fail, that's fine, so we didn't do it. However, we can exhaust the rabbit's foot. We can draw a card, and we get, nice, we get dig deep. Well, that's good. Okay. So we can bring that out and use those resources. So we didn't manage to investigate, which means we are going to need to think about pitching in some other cards or doing something next go, because we've only got 2 goes on the flashlight, and we need to succeed. Okay, so that's our 3 turns. We get to try and get rid of Frozen in Fear again. So it's a 3 versus a 4. I'm definitely not pitching in Dig Deep for that, because I want to keep that. So it's a -1 or better. Chaos Bag has the Elder Sign. There we go. So that is successful. We eventually get rid of Frozen in Fear. Thank goodness. So we don't need to worry about that card anymore. So there we go. So there we go. So we brought out a flashlight, we brought out a rabbit's foot, we unsuccessfully investigated with the flashlight, which meant we got to draw a card, and then we got rid of Frozen in Fear. So some good things and some not so good things happened that turn. That's the end of our turn. We move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so we move straight into the upkeep phase. We get a knife, so we get a weapon now. Very nice. Great. So we can bring that out, and we can, because we've got the hand slot, so I think we can bring that out. So at least we've got a weapon to deal with if we get rats or something in the interim, and we need to move to a place where we can start to think about, if we can get the baseball bat or mind over matter, we might be in a reasonable place to do some damage to the Ghoul Priest. Yes. Okay, so that's the end of the upkeep phase. We move into the Mythos phase. We now have 3 Doom on the Mythos. It's now turn 7. Let's see what the encounter deck has to say, and we get a Ghoul minion. Little bit early. Would have been nice to have had the knife out and the Ghoul minion, so that's a little bit annoying. And not only is it annoying in 2 ways, because we've still got 2 clues to get here. We've got to deal with a Ghoul minion, which is a 2 fight, and indeed we are a 2 fight, so this is going to be a little bit difficult, unless we take an attack of opportunity to bring out the knife, which would help a little bit. I have to think about this. Yeah. Okay. Okay, at least we've gotten rid of Frozen in Fear, so it's our turn. We've got 3 actions. So the first thing that's sort of kind of annoying is we don't have any weapons to speak of. So the question is, we can certainly play this, which would make the enemy aloof, and then we can get out of here. But that doesn't really solve anything, because we really need to get the clues. But it would allow us to get out of the cellar, get the knife on board, get Dig Deep on board, and then come back. So that would be one option, would be to play this here and then regroup. The second option is to try to fight the Ghoul minion, which is a 2 versus a 2, so which is not great. But if we do fail, of course, we get to, but yes, we have to succeed twice in order to defeat the Ghoul. So that's the second option. The third option is to try to evade the Ghoul, so that's a 2 versus a 2, and we could throw in the hiding spot to help with that. Unfortunately, we don't have Dig Deep or the knife equipped at the moment. Mm. It's really unfortunate we didn't have time to bring out the knife or dig deep, because that would have made a little bit of a difference. So I think we're going to be spending a little bit of time. Yes, I think we do. So we pay 1. We attach hiding spot. This location is getting very busy. So we've now got hiding spot, obscuring fog. I guess it makes sense. Obscuring fog, hiding spot. So so that means that the ghoul minion is aloof. It's like just working out what the hell's going on. We're hiding. So yeah, we fast played it. We attached it to a location. Non-elite enemies gain aloof. At the end of enemy phase, which is coming, then we would discard it. But that means that allows us to move into the. Where's it? Oh, hello. Oh, there she is. She's hiding. It's getting a bit crowded here, isn't it? So we'll move Min back into the hallway. There's a first action. As a second action, we will bring out the knife. And as a third action, using up all our resources here, but we'll bring out dig deep. So we've now, both of our hand slots are taken up. We've got the rabbit's foot in place, so it's allowed us to just get all the different bits and pieces into place. We've got a bunch of cards now on the table, so we're better placed with our 4 resources to deal with the ghoul minion, because now he's a 2 and we can bump ourselves up a little bit if we need to. We've got a knife in place so we can actually attack, and if we need to as well. We've got the rabbit's foot if we fail, and we've got the flashlight, so we've got all the bits that we need. But we are going to need at least 1 more clue if we're going to move forward and get Lita Chandler on board. So we've got lots of cards on the table, but it's still very difficult. There we go. So that's the end of our turn. Yep, that was the other 2, the knife and dig deep. So we use hiding spot. Hiding spot is now attached. It's not going to be there much longer though. Enemy phase. We move into the enemy phase, and at the end of the enemy phase, if a ready enemy is attached to a location, discard the hiding spot, so it gets discarded. But the ghoul minion's there in the fog. We're in the hallway. There we go. We move into the upkeep phase and we get field work. Move to a location. If that location has at least 1 clue on it, exhaust field work. You get +2 skill value for your next skill test. So yes, we can do that. Unfortunately though, if we move back into the cellar, we are going to take a damage. But that means that we can go back into the cellar, we can use the knife, we can hit the ghoul minion with that extra action, and hopefully that will kill the ghoul minion. So that's actually quite a handy card to get. Okay, so we move into the mythos phase. So there is now 4 things are moving apace. Yes, it's a little bit slower than I would have liked, but anyway. Really unfortunate. It's always bad when you get obscuring fog in the cellar. That's just a killer. All right, let's see what the encounter bag has for us. And another ghoul minion. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. I knew that if we got this happening to us as Min, we're just not set up to fight particularly. Anyway, there we go. We're in the hallway with another ghoul minion, so we're going to have to deal with that, and we're not really in a position particularly to evade. So we're going to have to work out what we're going to do. Okay, so it's investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Min. Here we are with the ghoul. It's a 2 fight. And we have a 2 fight, but we now have a knife, which gives us a 3 fight. Yes, so we need to basically, now we could throw the knife, discard the knife. I don't think that's a great idea though. I think we just try and fight this ghoul minion and see how we go. And I don't really want to start using up my cards. So let's see how we go. So we're going to fight the ghoul minion. So first action is we're going to fight with the knife. So it's a 3. Yeah, it's a 3 versus a 2. So -1 or better. Chaos Bag says -1. We succeed and we do a point of damage. Thank goodness. So, wow, there we go. We'll hit him again with the knife. So we'll knife the ghoul minion again. -1 or better. Chaos Bag says skull, which is -1. So we amazingly go min. Oh, not horror, not doom. We do 2 points of damage and the ghoul minion dies. Wow. Ghoul minion is dead. There we go. So we kill the ghoul minion. Fantastic. Now we're not moving back into the cellar just yet. Probably the thing to do is to pay 2 and bring out the field work. So when we move to the cellar, we can exhaust field work and we get a +2 skill value, which we will use to kill the other ghoul minion. Wow, we're getting quite a set of cards here. I don't think I've ever had such a long list of cards. And yeah, all the slots are fine. There you go. So that was our third action. So that was reasonably successful. We killed the ghoul minion. We got field work out. We're okay. We're doing okay. Enemy phase. No enemies to speak of that can do anything. So we move into, we get hyper awareness. So I'm not, to be honest, I'm not going to play hyper awareness out because we've got dig deep. They both do evade. We don't need more intellect. We've got plenty of intellect. So I think the thing about hyper awareness is to use it for the pips. It would be really nice to get the baseball bat. Anyway. And we move into another Doom on Rise of the Ghouls. Things are progressing. I'm starting to get a bit worried because we do need to get at least one more clue. So we need to get back into the cellar and we need to get cracking. So here we go. Encounter deck says, grasping hands. Here we go. Take a damage. All right. Well, that's better than taking horror at this stage. We can take a bit of damage. So it's 3 when we are a 2. So that's not great. That's -1. So what do we do here? I mean, we can soak up a little bit of damage with the leather coat. We can pay for some extra with dig deep. And this is the problem that we now have, because if we get the king in yellow, 2, 3, 4. This is probably a time to throw in hyper awareness. So we will throw in hyper awareness. We will use the special ability that Min has, is to add a wildcard icon. So that gives us a 4 versus a 3. Let's see how we go. 4 versus a 3. Chaos Bag says -2. So we failed by -1. So we basically take a damage. So we take a damage. That's fine. We're on 7 damage. We haven't taken any damage yet, so we'll take a damage for that. That's grasping hand. So that wasn't too bad. Not too bad. Okay. So we move into the investigation phase. We'll put 3 actions on Min. And I think it's time to probably deal with the ghoul priest. So the first thing we will do is we will move back into the cellar, which means we do take another damage. So unfortunately we had to do that. So that's 2 damage. We move into the cellar. We exhaust field work, move to a location. If that location has at least 1 clue, exhaust field work, and you get +2 skill value on the next action you perform. So we will do that, which means we fight. So we get +3 fight. So we now have 5 fight. Yes, 5 versus 2. So that's a -3 or better. So this is our second action. And Chaos Bag says -2. So we succeed and do a damage to the ghoul. And then I suppose we have a choice here. We could either spend resources to evade, or we can just try and fight again. I'm thinking, we can probably lose a leather coat if we really have to, because I don't want to use up too much of our resources because we're going to probably need them. We could also use lucky if we really had to, but we probably need that too. So I think we just do, it would be a 3 versus a 2, a -1 or a better. Do we use one of these? No, I need to get rid of this. So I'm going to put in one of these no stone unturned. When did we use the intellect pit? That was in the mythos phase, so we can't, you can only do that once per round. So we can't do it again because we did it at the beginning in the mythos phase. So if we did throw this in, we would essentially be a 2, 3, 4. We'd be a 4 versus a 2. So that's a -2 or better. That feels reasonable. Chaos Bag says, oh boy, auto fail. All right. So we exhaust the rabbit's foot and we draw a card and we get another knife. Okay. That was our 3rd turn. So that was a little bit unfortunate because we're now going to take a hit of some damage. Okay, maybe we should have evaded. No, we would have auto failed. So it doesn't matter what we would have done. We would have been in a similar situation. Okay, so we move into the enemy phase. The enemy does 1 horror and 1 damage to us. The lion can't take any more. The leather coat could take the damage. We could take the damage. I think we take the damage and the horror. So we take the damage and the horror. Ouch. It's getting a bit nasty now. It's starting to build up, but that's the way it is. And we move into the upkeep phase and we get the old Book of Lore. Yes, which, because it's a hand slot, it's not really something we can play at the moment. So maybe if we get Rotting Remains, we might be using it for that. Okay. All right, so we move into the mythos phase. There are now 6 doom. Things are really moving forward. So we need to get rid of this ghoul minion and we need to get at least 1 more clue and get out of here. I wish I hadn't gotten rid of deduction now. It seemed like it was an easy discard at the time, but now I'm regretting it a little bit. But anyway, you don't know before till after. Okay. So the mythos phase, let's see what the encounter deck has for us. And the encounter deck has, well, there we go, Rotting Remains. Just like we imagined it would be. Test 3, for each point you fail by, take a horror. Now we're in the mythos phase, which means we can throw in the Book of Lore and add a wildcard icon, so we can add 2 willpower to this. So we are off 6 versus a 3, so a -3 or better. Chaos Bag says -1, so we succeed in avoiding Rotting Remains, which is good because we don't want to take any more horror, but that's our wildcard icon used up. Okay, right. So we move into the investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Min. First order of the day, I should have this in in our threat area is to finish off this ghoul minion. So it's really just using the knife here. So that's a 3 versus a 2. I don't really want to use this. So let's see how we go. If we've taken 2 turns, then we're going to throw this knife in. But I'm going to try and just do 3 versus 2, which is a -1 or better. So the first action is we're going to fight with the knife. 3 versus a 2. Chaos Bag says -1. So we succeed. 3 versus 2. Ghoul minion is dead. There we go. Done. Phew, Min's doing okay, really, considering. So that was the first action. Okay, so here we are. We need to get at least 1 more clue. We've got 2 more goes here with the flashlight. I don't want to use any of these if I can possibly help it. To be frank, I really, really don't want to. So let's see how we go. So we will, for our second turn, we'll use the flashlight and bring it down to a 4. We are a 5, so it's a 5 versus a 4. -1 or better. Chaos Bag has -1. Wow, we did it. Fantastic. We get a resource. Brilliant. Thank you, Milan Christopher. Again, saved our bacon, keeping our resources up. So, well, we might as well try one more time. We've got the last of the flashlight. Here we go. Last of the flashlight. Again, it's a 5 versus a 4. Chaos Bag says 0. Wow. Wow, we did it. We did it, we did it. Yeah. Wow, Craig goes, well, everybody's really, really hoping Min can do well. And that was a great, great outcome. We succeeded. So what a round. We hit the ghoul minion and killed the ghoul minion. Then we used up our flashlight and we successfully investigated twice. We've got lots of resources, so we can evade just about anything, which is we're going to need to do that because we need to get Lita Chandler on board. I'm shit scared because there's a 1 in 14 chance now we're going to draw the king in yellow. So I'm starting to think like the quicker we actually get finished, the better, to at least resign, because if we get the king in yellow, we can just resign. So the main thing now is to get back to the hallway, evade the ghoul priest, get into the parlor, and at the very least resign. I think that would be a good outcome. We may think about fighting the ghoul priest, but right now it's just getting into the parlor so that we're in a place to resign. Okay, let's move forward into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. Oh, and this would have gone. Actually, I just realized we didn't need such a huge thing for the second choice. I know you're all shouting at me and sort of saying, no, once you've successfully investigated with obscuring fog on there, you don't need to do it again. So it doesn't matter. We've succeeded anyway. So there you go. We succeeded even with the obscuring fog there twice, because that's the way that Min rolls. She doesn't want to make it any easier for herself. Craig's really on her side. They can't believe she's done so well. She's fought off minions. She's fought off fog. She's done it all. So been very resourceful. Look at this. She's got practically half her deck on the table. She's doing really, really, really well. So there we go. So that was the enemy phase. Upkeep phase. We get the baseball bat. Oh, yes. All right. Yep. Well, that's going to really make a big difference. Okay, now I'm feeling like we could actually defeat, it's actually possible we could defeat the ghoul priest, but we need to be in a place where we can resign if we really need to. Right. Okay. Phew. All right. So we move into the Mythos phase. There are now 7 Doom on Rise of the Ghouls. So I'll just take those off. A feral beast, roughly humanoid. I love that. A feral beast, roughly humanoid, with a canine cast. Does that mean he's got it under his arm? He's got like a head of a dog under his arm or something? And hooves for feet, tears through the ground in front of you. Below the floor, you can see vast tunnels beneath your house. Fiendish howling echoes from deep within underground caverns. Here we go. This will be fun. Shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck. Discard cards from the top until a ghoul enemy is discarded. The lead investigator draws that enemy. Please be the icy ghoul. I've forgotten this was coming up. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's do that now. So shuffle that in. Shuffle into the encounter deck. Yes, we want to shuffle it. Okay, so we've shuffled it in. We'll shuffle the encounter deck again. It's all shuffled. Let's start drawing from the top. Oh, hello. Nope. Nope. Yes. Ah, the worst one. It's the ravenous ghoul. Who's... anyway. Because you get nothing for him. He's tough, but you don't get any victory points. He's the worst. Anyway, he's the one. Okay. We drew that enemy. They're getting out. They're getting out. You hear a crazed howl outside, and suddenly all the creatures turn their attention to that sound. They rush to escape the house, breaking down doors and clawing at everything in their way. At the end of the enemy phase, each unengaged ghoul enemy moves one location towards the parlour. At the end of the round, place one doom on this agenda for each ghoul enemy in the hallway or parlour. There we go. So, yes, things are getting very nasty. Okay. So at the end of the enemy phase, unengaged ghouls move one location towards the parlour. Great. Okay. All right. So that's now we've got to draw from the encounter deck. Counter deck says obscuring fog. Yeah, whatever. That's actually a bit of a hospital pass, then that, or whatever it is. It's an easy pass. So there we go. No big deal. So we move forward into the investigation phase, and we put 3 actions on Min. So I'm not going to try to fight the ravenous ghoul. That's just going to be a whole lot of pain, I think, because we are a 3 fight. So 0 or better is not great. Yes, we could throw in the knife and try and, use an extra skill icon to help. But the problem is we could throw in the knife and do +2, which would do 2 damage, but then we would have to do an additional point of damage. So I think at this stage, because we are going to activate the Ghoul Priest, yes, but if we, let me think about this. So if we evade him successfully, then we move into the hallway. Then end of enemy phase, he won't do anything because he can't move, and then he will come back to life. Then we'll activate the Ghoul Priest. So when it's our turn, we'll just need to evade the Ghoul Priest to get into the parlour. So that seems like the best thing to do. Yes. Okay. So So we need to evade the Ghoul Priest. Evade the Ghoul Priest. We need to evade the Ravenous Ghoul. 3 versus 2 at the moment. So we can bump that up. But do we try to... Yes, I think we do. I think we bring in... we put in the... stone unturned, and we add an extra wild icon, so that gives us a 4. And then I think what we do is we put in another 2 resources, hate to use resources, but that gives us a 6. So that's a 6 versus a 3. So a -3 or better for the ghoul, and we get a -1. So yes, we succeed. So he's exhausted. Okay, so that's our first action. We successfully evade. For our second action, we move into the hallway. And for our third action, we could either gain a resource or draw a card. And I think even though we're a chance of getting king in yellow, we draw the card and we get working on a hunch, which we can use with Lita Chandler. It would be really nice to get mind over matter, because then that would be really, really handy. So we can either use it for mind over matter if that comes up, or we can use it for getting Lita Chandler on board. So that's all great. So that was our third action. So we managed to successfully evade this ghoul, the ravenous ghoul, moved to the hallway, and then we drew working on a hunch. So there we go. We've got a dead hand slot here that we can happily replace. Maybe we should have done that. Maybe that was we should have maybe put that in instead. Oops, too late. Okay. Yes, so here we are in the so that's the end of that phase. We then move into the enemy phase. No enemies to speak of, so we move into the upkeep phase. Look what I found, which is pretty useless now, but not for Lita Chandler. So yes, so that's all that. So we're at the end of the upkeep phase, which means it's the end of the turn, which means we put in our 3 actions, because I feel like things aren't going to get much better than this. We flip the barrier, Act 2A. So, using the barrel from the attic, you carry ice and snow from the cellar and hurl it at the barrier. The barrier sparks and shudders and consumes the ice, then hisses and fades out of existence. The barrier blocking the passage to the parlour has vanished. Reveal the parlour. Ta-da! There's the parlour, which has got Parley and also Resign. We move Lita Chandler in there. Oh, hello. Oh, Min, I'm right here. Just come and have a little chat to me, and we could defeat this nasty ghoul priest between the two of us. I know we can. Have you got a baseball bat or something like that? That'll work. And then the ghoul priest arrives. Hello, I'm here to kill you. You've got no chance. Leather coat? Ha! Give me a great chance to bash you over the head, because you got no leather helmet. There we go. So the ghoul priest arrives into the hallway. There we go. So we have, what have you done? A woman with a torch stands in your parlour, a glimmer of hatred in her eyes. What have you done to my barrier? She screams furious, but before you can answer, a ghastly wail sounds behind you, and a creature wearing robes and a deer skull mask tears through the wall, advancing toward you. If the ghoul priest is defeated, advance. There we go. And then, yes, that's the end of the turn. So we move into the mythos phase, the first one. So we've got round at the end of the round. Place one the end of the round. Okay, at the end of the enemy phase into the parlour at the end of the round. So yeah, we're all fine at the moment. So that's and then we draw the encounter deck. Let's hope it's not another ghoul, and it is another rotting remains. 3 versus 4. The rotting remains. Now we could spend something. Yes, do we spend a resource to make it 3 versus 5? I think we do. I mean, we've got, because Milan can't take any more horror, but then he's done. I mean, Milan Christopher is kind of done, really, because we're not going to use him anymore. So that's a horror we can soak up. we've got 4. So the worst case would be 3. We'd lose 3 horror, which means Milan would take 1, and we would take 2, which means we're down to 2 horror, which means we wouldn't even one retaliate from the Ghoul Priest and we're gone. It would be good to be able to survive at least 1 possible retaliate from the Ghoul Priest, I have to say. But having said that, we need to evade the Ghoul Priest once, which we can do. So I think, yeah, we put in the resource. Do we put in 2 resources then? Because we're not going to try and evade. Well, we might try and evade the Ghoul Priest again, because if we evade him again, then we can just go to town on him without fear of being hit. So perhaps that might be a good idea. So maybe we just do that. So we've added 1 willpower. So we are now a 5 versus a 3. I think that's reasonable. Okay, Chaos Bag says -1. There you go. We didn't even need to do that, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. So rotting remains. Who cares about those? There we go. So we survived that. When does the Ghoul Priest? When does the other Ghoul move? At the end of the enemy phase, he moves into the parlor. Okay, we got to get out the parlor. We got to get towards the parlor. So they're all going to move into the parlor eventually. So we've got to get out of the hallway, get into the parlor. So the first thing we're going to do is move to the investigation phase. That's probably the first thing to do. We'll add 3 actions. Okay, these actions have really got to count. Come on, Min. So the first thing we are going to do is evade the Ghoul Priest, because there's no way we can fight the Ghoul Priest the way that we are. So he's got a 4 and we have a 2. So we either pitch in Unexpected Courage. So I think the thing is, we're probably at the stage that if we move into the parlor and we end up with the King in Yellow, it's an insta-resign. There's no point us even trying. So I don't think we need to worry now about the King in Yellow. We're beyond worrying. As long as we can get into the parlor, then whatever happens, we can try and kill the Ghoul Priest. And if things are not going well, then we just simply resign. So I think we stop worrying so much and start just, as long as we get into the parlor, we're in a pretty reasonable position to, at the very least, resign. So that being the way that it is, we will pitch in the Unexpected Courage. So if we do that, that gives us a 2, a 3, 4. And we can add another wild icon, so 5. That would give us a 5 versus a 4. It's still not really enough to evade him. So let me think about this. 2, 3, 4. So plus 3 is 5. 6, 7. 7 versus 4. I think we do a 7 versus 4. If we have to use lucky, then we use lucky. Okay, 7 versus 4. Chaos Bag says -1. So again, we overshot, but you never know. So we evade the Ghoul Priest. So the Ghoul Priest is exhausted. Where have you gone? What? Where have you gone? So we evaded the Ghoul Priest. That's the first action. The second action is we move into the parlor. That's our second action. And I realize now we should have brought out the baseball bat earlier. Anyway, we'll see how we go. And then our third action is let's parley Lita. So she's a 4. We are a 5. And then I think we do 6, 7. We do a 7. Do we do a... We don't need this. We can't use it. Well, no. No. So we might as well throw them all in. So we've got a 5, 6, 7. We've got 9. 9 versus 4. Okay, Chaos Bag says -1 again, so we succeed. So we now have Leader Chandler on board, which means Milan Christopher is gone. There we go. There we go. So that was our third turn. Oh yeah, we'll be okay because of course he's exhausted, so we've got time to get ourselves ready. Wow. So that was good. So we evaded the Ghoul Priest. We did that. Then we shot into the parlor, and we succeeded in parleying with Leader Chandler. My goodness, those resources that Milan Christopher gave us have really made a big difference. So there we are. We are now in the parlor. So that's the end of our turn. So things are looking good. If we can get the baseball bat on board, and if we could get mind over matter, we will be in a really, really, really good position to actually do something. So I'm actually kind of feeling there's a glimmer of hope. We might actually do this. So, enemy phase, the Ravenous Ghoul moves into the hallway in the enemy phase, heading to the parlor. Okay, and then the upkeep phase. Oh, okay, glyphs. Well, that's not really. If that's going to come up, this is the wrong time for archaic glyphs, let me tell you. Anyway, so there we go. So we moves there. So that's the end of the upkeep phase, and then at the end of the round, place a doom for each ghoul enemy. So there are 2 ghoul enemies in the parlor. Not resources. Try that again. Yep. So that went up by 2. Ouch. That's not good. Okay. So there we go. There is now 4 doom. So things are moving really apace. Yes. So the counter deck says Crypt Chill, no problem, because we don't need the flashlight anymore anyway. So Crypt Chill 4 versus 4. Yep, Crypt Chill. Chaos Bag says +1, so we can't even fail Crypt Chill even when we want to. So there we go. We are now into the investigation phase. We have 3 actions. So this is where things get interesting, because what do we do here? Yes, we have 3 actions. Now we can replace the flashlight and the knife with the baseball bat. So we could do that, which means that if we attack and we successfully attack, not only do we get +3, so we are now then a 5 fight before we've even starting, but then we would do +1, +2, we would do 3 points of damage. So we could potentially defeat the Ghoul Priest relatively quickly. The problem is we're in the parlor, the Ghoul Priest is in the hallway, so what's going to happen is both of them are going to, so the Ghoul Priest will move in the, they'll both move in the investigation phase. So one moves at the end of the enemy phase, sorry, and the Ghoul Priest will move and will hit us for 4, and then the Ravenous Ghoul will also move. So that's really quite nasty, because we'll take a lot of damage. We'll take 2 and 2, which we'll need to put on Leader Chandler, which means the other alternative is we bring out the baseball bat, we move, but then it would probably be trying to evade the Ghoul Priest. So we could evade the Ghoul Priest. What's better? But we would still take a point of, the Ravenous Ghoul would hit us, which is less extreme. It's only 1 of each. But then we're out of the parlor, and that means we're in no position to resign. So I don't want to do that. I need to stay where we are. So we're going to have to take the 2 damage and the 2 horror. We lose a leather coat, so we can absorb that, and then we basically have a chance to kill the Ghoul Priest. And if things are not going well, if we haven't done it, then we resign. I think that's what we do. So we cop the damage that we take from the Ghoul Priest in the first instance. So yes, so the first action is to spend 2, bring out the baseball bat, which means we lose the knife, and we lose the flashlight. I think that's better than trying to go and throw the knife and then evade and then next go, and then if just things go wrong, I know you could probably move, you could try and evade, and then you could throw the knife maybe at the ravenous ghoul, but that just feels, is that better? Let me just think about this. We move, we have 2 turns. So even if we have 2 turns, well, no, we can throw the nut. Actually, could we do that? Yes, we could. Have we already used up our, yes, we did. So the evasion would be 2, 3, 4. Oh no, we could do, I'm not going to use that. It's a really difficult. It's a really, okay, let me think about this a second. So we move to the hallway. We then evade the ravenous ghoul, so that would be a 3 versus a 5. 3 versus a 5, maybe a 3 versus a 6. And then if we threw the knife, we'd get +2. So that would give us 2 +2, 4, plus Leader Chandler, 5. So we could do a 5 versus a 4 against the Ghoul Priest. And if we succeed, and then we could use lucky if we fail, which would mean that we would do 1, 2, 3. We would do 3 points of damage to the Ghoul Priest. And we would then still take damage from the Ghoul Priest. It feels like a riskier thing to do because we're relying on a successful evasion, and we're also relying on then a successful. So it feels like we're relying on more things happening, and then if they don't, we're then no longer in the parlor. We're stuck in the hallway, and then we have to try and get back to the parlor. Whereas if we stay in the parlor, yes, we cop that from the Ghoul Priest, but we can then resign it. So I think that's a better thing to do. And then all we're doing is we're just trying to kill the Ghoul Priest as quickly as possible. The only issue will be if the baseball bat breaks. But again, we just resign. So I think whatever happens, we're in a much better position here because we can just resign if we need to. So there we go. I'm sure some of you may prefer a more aggressive stance, but I'm going to play it more safely than that because Min, I want to see Min survive even if it means resigning, and I think she's done pretty well. So that was our first action. We've got 2 more actions to go. Like I said, if we draw the king in yellow, we're resigning. There's no point, I don't think, trying to succeed, or maybe there is, I don't know, but I don't think so. So now we've got 3 resources. Is it helpful to get more resources? Well, we're not going to be evading, we're really just going to be fighting. So I don't really see the point in getting more resources. So I think we just draw cards. So we draw another card, we get a flashlight, we draw a final card, and we get hiding spot. Okay, which is, well, would help us evade, I suppose, the Ghoul Priest, but really not really something we need to do. Okay, so that's how it goes. So we're set up. I think it's the safest thing to do. I know some of you would probably prefer it if I'd run headlong into the hallway, evaded the Ravenous Ghoul and or the Ghoul Priest and smashed one or the other. Like, yes, we could have tried to evade the Ghoul Priest and then killed the other Ghoul. But I think this feels like a safer plan, because no matter what happens, I've been in situations in the Gathering where you just need an auto fail and then your whole plan. Whereas if we stay in the parlor, no matter what happens, if we draw the king in yellow, whatever happens, we just resign. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we move into the enemy phase. Right, so the Ghoul Priest moves and hits us. Ah ha ha! So we lose. So we take 2/2. So one of them goes to the leather coat. So the leather coat takes that damage. So it goes. Let's move them up. So Leader Chandler takes the other point of damage, and then and then she can take the 2 horror. So she absorbs all that. There we go. So that's that, and then at the end of the enemy phase, the Ravenous Ghoul moves in, but doesn't attack because the attack happens earlier in the enemy phase, so it just moves. And I think at the end of the round, for each Ghoul enemy in the hallway or parlor, right, so this is going to ramp up again, so we really do need to, it really is time to finish. So there we go, there's the end of the enemy phase. Then we go into the upkeep phase. We haven't got the king in yellow. After all that stressing, the king in yellow is literally at the bottom of the pack. We didn't get mind over matter either, so it was sort of we didn't get mind over matter and we didn't get the king in yellow. So there we go. It's all good. So there we go. That's the upkeep phase. So we move into the Mythos phase. Oh, hold on. Before the Mythos phase, though, we should have added 2 more Doom at the end of the round. 1 agenda. So 1 Doom for each one. So we had an extra 2 Doom. So yes, we really need to finish because things, I think this is the end of the end. Yeah. So, yep. So we just got to get the encounter card, and the encounter card is... Here he is. The Flesh Eater. Hello. Where is everybody? Hello. So there we go. The Flesh Eater is in the attic. But it's a bit too late to be taking a little trip to the attic to defeat the Flesh Eater. Far too late. So we saw the Icy Ghoul and the Flesh Eater, but interestingly, the Icy Ghoul appeared too early and the Flesh Eater appeared too late. So there we go. So that's the encounter deck, encounter phase. We move into the final investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Min. So here we go. This is it. This is Last Chance Saloon right here. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a red hot go, and we're going to try to defeat the Ghoul Priest. We are going to use the baseball bat, and we're going to use Leader Chandler, and we're going to throw in everything else that we've got. We've got lucky, so I think I'm feeling kind of confident now. So let's see how we go. So first action is to fight. So we get +2. So that gives us a fight of 4. But we also have Leader Chandler. So we get a fight of 5. So we are a 5 versus a 4. So I think what we do is we throw in Analytical Mind with an extra icon. So that gives us an 8 versus a 4. Oh. Yes, so I think what we do is we go big the first time, and then we'll go smaller the second time, because we could do a 7 versus a 4, but it's better to go big the first time, and then we can use lucky if we need to, because the next time we can do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we've got lucky. So we should be okay. As long as we don't auto fail, we should be okay. So we're using the 3 icons there. So that's 3 +2, 5, 6. We are an 8 versus a 4. So it really is -4 or better. Chaos Bag says +1. Wow, there we go. plus 1. Ghoul Priest takes 1, 2, 3 points of damage. Takes 3 points of damage. We keep the baseball bat because we didn't fail. Wow. So there we go. That was our first action. Our second action is to go again. So our second action is to go again with the baseball bat. It's plus 2, plus Leader Chandler, plus 3. So we get plus 3, which gives us 5 versus 4. Now we make that a 6 versus a 4. So it's a 6 versus a 4, but we've got a lucky. So let's see how we go. 6 versus 4. So we've got to get a -2 or better. Chaos Bag has -1. So we succeed. We don't even need to use lucky. We succeed, and we do another 3 points of damage. And the Ghoul Priest dies. Ah! Ladies and gentlemen, the crowd goes wild. Min is jumping up and down. She can't believe it. She managed to survive the gathering. She managed to defeat the Ghoul Priest. I can't believe it. I'm so proud of Min. She was so nervous going into this, and she managed to succeed. Leader Chandler and her are hugging and cheering. The crowd is going wild. You would think she was top of the table the way that she's behaving, but it's just fantastic that she managed to survive. Thankfully, incredibly, we didn't get the king in yellow. Yes, we didn't get Mind Over Matter, but we didn't get the king in yellow. So she did an amazing job of avoiding and fighting ghoul minions, getting into the parlor, getting Leader Chandler, and then baseball batting the Ghoul Priest to death. What an ending. It took till turn 14. That's fine. I really didn't think we would manage to survive, and I'm really delighted for Min. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I really do appreciate all of the likes and the watches and subscribes. Please like and subscribe. You'll see where Min is on the table at the end of this video. And next week, it's time for another Carcosa investigator. And I think it's probably, well, who have we got left? I think we'll give Lola a go next week in the investigator games and see how she goes. Until that time, I'm Krabby Terror 8. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.